All right, let's kick things off with a question. Are you playing to win, or are you playing to keep playing? I know, it sounds a bit like a riddle, right? But honestly, your answer to that single question completely defines your fundamental approach to business strategy. Today, we're going to explore the profound difference between just surviving the next quarter and building a legacy that lasts for generations. This is a massive paradigm shift. In his brilliant book, The Infinite Game, Simon Sinek points out something really profound. Think about games like chess or soccer. Those are finite. They have clear rules, boundaries, and obvious winners. But business, life, those are infinite. There's no magical finish line where someone yells, "You win." If you lead with a finite mindset, if you're just trying to beat the competition for the quarter, your team is eventually going to end up exhausted, playing it safe, and completely cynical. But infinite-minded leaders, they're not trying to win the game, they're just trying to keep the game going. Welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to walk you through this material. Our big goal today is to help shift our collective mindset away from just short-term survival and towards long-term visionary leadership. We're going to take the abstract philosophy of the infinite game and connect it directly to hard, actionable blueprints for your strategy. Here's our roadmap for today. First, playing the infinite game. Second, crafting a strategic vision. Third, communicating it with real impact. Fourth, building trust and will. And finally, maintaining a long-term view. All right, let's jump straight into section 1, playing the infinite game and shifting your mindset. Take a second and honestly evaluate your own day-to-day operations. Are you constantly reacting to whatever your competitors are doing, or are you looking out at the horizon? See, a finite mindset creates this intense tunnel vision. It's all about beating the other guy and hitting arbitrary short-term metrics. The urgent basically eats the important for breakfast. But an infinite mindset, that frees you from obsessing over the competition. Instead of looking sideways, you look forward. You're driven by the desire to build something that lasts, leaving a thriving culture for the next generation of stewards. So that begs the question, what actually fuels that kind of infinite thinking? Well, Sinek calls it a just cause. It's the ultimate foundation of this infinite mindset. A just cause is a highly specific, affirmative, inclusive, and service-oriented vision of the future. It's a vision so incredibly appealing that people will literally sacrifice their own short-term interests to advance it. But, and I want to be super clear here, consider this a warning, a just cause is not just saying we want to be the best or chasing some arbitrary financial target. It's an ideal future state that you are continuously working toward, even if you never fully reach it. Moving right along to section 2, crafting a strategic vision, the actionable blueprint. Look, having a philosophical mindset shift is great and all, but how do you actually execute it? How do you bake this infinite vision into your company's DNA? Well, the Strategy Institute lays out a really clear methodology. Step 1, you have to understand reality. Do your SWOT and pestle analyses. Step 2, envision the future, say 5 to 10 years out. Then, step 3, gather insights directly from your employees and customers. Step 4, build consensus across different teams so you actually get buy-in. Once you have all that, step 5 is to draft the vision statement. Keep it simple, keep it inspiring. And finally, step 6, communicate it effectively. Each one of these steps is absolutely crucial. You just can't skip the hard work. To put that into perspective, look at Microsoft. When you nail those steps, you get a vision like theirs. Empower everyone to achieve more. Simple, right? But it sets this massive, ambitious, inclusive target. It conveys a deep commitment to global accessibility. And notice what's missing? There's absolutely zero dry, soul-crushing corporate jargon about Q3 revenue targets. It's an open invitation to play the infinite game. Which brings us to section 3, communicating with impact and making that vision actually stick. Okay, here's a harsh truth for you. A drafted vision, even if it's the most beautifully written sentence in the world, is completely useless if you don't communicate it well. So how do we make it stick? The Center for Creative Leadership drops some fantastic rapid-fire tips. First, tell a story. Stories breathe life into a vision. People repeat narratives, not bullet points. Next, perfect your elevator speech so you're ready to pitch it anytime, anywhere. Use multiple media forms. Heck, put it on a coffee mug if it gets the message circulating. Have one-on-one conversations to build real personal connections. Draw a crowd internally by rallying your key stakeholders, share it outside with your vendors and clients, and finally, guide the expedition by consistently sharing updates and celebrating small wins along the way. But wait, here is the ultimate catch. You've got to back up what you're saying. Behavioral alignment is literally the ultimate test of your communication strategy. If you're out there preaching this beautiful, infinite, inclusive vision, but your team sees you managing purely for short-term, finite quarterly gains, yeah, your credibility is shot. Your vision is dead in the water. Now, let's dive into Section 4, Building Trust and Will, the Human Element. You simply cannot execute an infinite vision without deep internal trust. You have to generate the collective will to pursue an infinite game. Without it, you open the door to a really dangerous phenomenon known as ethical fading. This is a cultural condition where people start acting unethically out of self-interest, but somehow trick themselves into believing they haven't compromised their morals. They'll use excuses like, well, it's what management wants, or, hey, that's just the industry standard. It is a stealthy creep that happens when those finite short-term pressures completely overpower long-term ethics and psychological safety. But when you actually build that trust, the results are mind-blowing. 84%. That's the exact drop in accidents on the Shell Ursa oil rig, which was the largest one the company had ever built at the time. How in the world did they pull that off? Well, the leader tasked with safety literally had his roughnecks sit in circles every single day and share their feelings. Seriously, sharing feelings on a deep-sea oil rig. It sounds crazy, but it broke down all those tough guy facades, removed the stigma around vulnerability, and built profound psychological safety. People stopped hiding their mistakes. They genuinely trusted each other. And as a result, accidents plummeted by 84%. When you cultivate that level of trust, you unlock something Sinek calls existential flexibility. This is the capacity to initiate an extreme, almost crazy disruption to your own business model just to advance your just cause. Think about Walt Disney. He was incredibly frustrated by the bureaucracy and the finite shareholder pressures at Walt Disney Productions. So what did he do? He sold his shares, risked his own personal life insurance policy, and built Disneyland. Why? Because, in his own words, he wanted to work on something that was alive, something that would keep growing. That, my friends, is the ultimate existential flexibility. All right, our final section, number 5, maintaining a long-term view and navigating crises. It's super easy to talk a big game about the infinite mindset when the economy is booming, right? But how do leaders protect their vision when a real-world crisis hits? Business expert Harry Kramer noticed a really fascinating trend. When times are good, leadership teams naturally spend about 80% of their energy on long-term growth and 20% on short-term management. But the second a crisis strikes, that focus completely flips. There's this huge temptation to pivot almost 100% to short-term survival, and the harsh reality is that ultra-short-term focus just isn't sustainable, and it can absolutely wreck your future value creation. So Kramer offers some really solid, actionable advice for getting through a downturn without losing your infinite mindset. First off, focus on known data and projections. Map out the scenarios for the next few months to a few years. Don't just panic. Second, right-size your human capital very carefully. Companies should be cutting peripheral costs, think travel budgets or extra office space, before they blindly lay off their essential talent. Because honestly, trying to rehire and retrain that talent later is going to cost a fortune. And finally, keep your perspective balanced by using the short-term lessons you're learning to drive long-term gains. For a great example, look at how some companies actually turned the COVID-19 pandemic from a crisis into a massive opportunity. Airbnb watched international travel practically disappear overnight, so they pivoted their algorithms to highlight local travel, letting people safely vacation close to home. Wayfair saw that everyone was suddenly stuck indoors shopping online, so they leaned hard into the e-commerce boom. They managed the immediate fire, sure, but they used it to advance their long-term visionary direction. Which brings us to our final and maybe most important thought of the day. Will your vision survive the next generation or just the next quarter? True strategic leadership isn't just about staring at a P&L statement all day. It's about shifting to an infinite mindset. It's about crafting a just cause, communicating it with killer storytelling, building deep vulnerability within your teams, and keeping your eyes fixed on the horizon even when the water is getting incredibly choppy. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Now get out there and keep playing the game.